right. Thank you, Megan. Super happy to be here and excited and have some colleagues that are going to share as well. Amanda, Nancy, and Tasha, who you see are going to share their stories too to kind of help explain who we are and what we do. I am going to share my screen. Okay, good. So we are inclusion seekers powered by Starfire. That is our logo there. And if you can hear it, we're going to transition but from one name to the other. So I've worked with Starfire for over 26 years, but we're transitioning to inclusion seekers for a few different reasons. But in case you hear us go back and forth, or if we name either, don't be confused. It's the same thing. When I was hired at Starfire, uh, over 25 years ago. Our program was a pretty traditional program model for people with disabilities. It was outings, getting small groups of people with disabilities together to go out to Reds games or dinners or movies. We had a day program. People came to our building, would spend the day there, um, doing some cooking classes or an exercise, some life skills development, and all of that kind of thing. You've probably seen something similar where you're from. And it was really thinking about the identity that people had. It was really based on their disability, their diagnosis. That's what they were coming together around. The connections they had, we realized were really just people with disabilities connecting with each other and our staff. And we heard that that was true kind of outside of our program as well. Those were kind of where the limits of their connections were. And the culture was pretty much, we were doing kind of what was already out there, pretty status quo, nothing too creative or imaginative going on. So maybe about between 15, 20 years ago, we had some mentors who started to introduce some concepts to us and some learning that really kind of changed the way we saw our program and what we were offering for people with disabilities. The first big one was valued social roles and appreciating how important having a valued role is in our world and our society, the limits that people of opportunities that people with disabilities are often given, and how they're given invitations to show up, and some of the limitations of people's mindsets and the stereotypes that are out there, and how that impacts them, and what makes some of how they show up really difficult in our society. We learned about trauma response and trauma-informed care, which was really important, I think, for us to learn a little bit of empathy, to understand what was going on, some of the brain science there and development, um, understanding some positive action that we could take with people that we cared about, and really appreciating the resilience and the strength that people have to keep showing up. And for today, especially asset-based community development as an introduction. So this is a picture of John McKnight with my youngest, who's now 10, at our dining room table. So it's just adorable, and I thought I'd share it. This was not the first time we were introduced to John. The first time he started to come and talk about asset-based community development, it stung a bit, hearing what institutions, his way of viewing institutions, and how institution mindsets and deficits and how we benefit from people's deficits really kind of struck a nerve for us in our design of our program. And it was different. We'd heard that we were doing great things. We were changing the world. We're saints. And here comes John McKnight with a different perspective. It was really important for us in our development and thinking about that. He and Peter Black, luckily, we're coming to you from Cincinnati. So he's got some roots here. So we got to know him pretty well. But his concept of community and the abundant community and how important neighbors could be. So we cared a great deal. We started to realize how isolated people with disabilities and their families were. And this idea of community and neighbors showing up for each other sounded great. But on a personal level, I couldn't relate. I didn't know my neighbors, didn't understand it. So meeting John and learning about this through the years sent us on a personal journey too, of how do I, if we think this is important, it seems like a great idea. What is it real? Can this really happen? So changing our own personal lives in many ways, but also taken a look at our program design and what we were offering to people. And if the possibility that community could be an answer to what people are looking for to find people that care about them, how can we support that? How can we invest in that? And what might that look like so that we can do a better job? And to be real honest about ways that our program might be um, getting in the way of community showing up and people being in each other's lives. So began a lot of iterations and changes and thinking about our program. And one of the things about 10 years ago, we had a staff leave. Turnover is always an issue for places. And we invested that salary and thought it's time to invest in families with children with disabilities. And these families, how can we invest in them, take their learning as seriously as we do our staff? So, professional development for our staff, they go to trainings, they learn all these things. But when you sit back and look at it, just because you have a child with a disability doesn't mean you get trained in valued roles or asset-based community development. And what would it mean if you could? So thinking about that for these families and how that might change, investing money, giving them money for their time to show up and to think about these things with us, as well as money to create a project that would be meaningful to them and their family. And we gave some mentorship. So asking them, for the next year, finding the families that said, okay, I'll give you a year. We'll meet monthly. We'll talk about, yes, I'll try something new. And the mentorship monthly to kind of reinforce some of the values, some of that learning, as well as that encouragement. So asking people to step into some new spaces, go knock on the door of that neighbor, talk to them, being that person that could encourage. Because for most people, that's a stretch. For some, it was a bigger stretch than others. So that was an important part of it. And just allowing these families to have the ability to really create with intention the world they want to see, the neighborhood, the thing that they really want to see and create with their neighbors. So this is outside of our agency, like we're in the background. There's no logos anywhere. People freely given, neighbors, community. This is not paid staff or hired help, but really, really leaning into that to see what might be possible. So I am gonna stop my share because you guys are gonna get to hear what those look like, some of these projects. We have these three wonderful people who are willing to share their story of community. That was 10 years ago, so these are all different. Everybody's in a little different timeline of where they started, but Tasha is gonna share first her story of her family's project and what it's meant for them.
Thank you so much, Bridget. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see, okay, and I'm going to just assume that everybody can see it, and somebody please let me know if you can't. But this is our neighborhood story and our connection with inclusion seekers and Starfire. So we were approached with this idea, and in thinking about community connection in our neighborhood. We were in the midst of being, I mean, at the time we were still working, two working positions, three children. My middle daughter has a disability and is medically complex. And in how I was envisioning our why was really thinking about the community and the people that were going to be around my middle daughter, Soraya, and what that would be like for her. And so, truly, the idea of building community before we needed it and thinking about, well, us aging and who would be a part of her family outside of us. And so the things that I was kind of thinking about to kind of start with the idea is an actual neighborhood carnival. And so this was back in 2019, and I thought of a carnival because Soraya oftentimes gets really overstimulated, and their school always had a carnival, but it was always too much for her. She also really likes familiar people, and while she knew the neighbors, I thought it would be great to do a carnival version with people that were at least familiar to her. The other thing that I had thought about is the last day of school was always a big thing in our neighborhood as we had a lot of children there. And so kind of thinking of this neighborhood carnival on the last day of school. So the way that we kind of started it was just with an email. And the key takeaways that I got from the team kind of supporting me was automatically creating a time and location of where people would meet. And I gave my contact information and I went ahead and gave the neighborhood the time and a list of ideas. And while the ideas were there, they weren't necessarily written in stone. And so it gave plenty of opportunities for our neighborhood to come together to kind of think of the planning and make rearrangements. And so it was a matter of 3 months, and we actually met just over 4 meetings. And in that time, things kind of took a life of their own as far as what our strengths were. And that allowed us to be flexible and kind of thinking of what this neighborhood carnival would look like. And so here are some pictures from the carnival. We had, pretty much every yard involved with either an activity or a game. My worst fear was that it was going to rain, and that happened, and it was still an absolute hit. We had one neighbor who I found out during the time of us just making our meetings that his father had passed away from ALS, and then another neighbor who had recently been diagnosed with ALS. So then we decided to make this carnival a fundraiser, and we started gathering things to make baskets for raffles. And so this became kind of part of our carnival. We had a neighbor that we rarely talked to, and all we knew is that he worked a ton, but he was never there. But then when it came to this carnival, agreed to donate pizzas for the carnival as he owned multiple pizzerias in the area. And so this is just some highlights. I'm going to go ahead and share this video of Soraya just enjoying what I thought was going to be the worst thing ever, which was the rain. And there's still so much joy. So even though I could not predict this happening, there was so much fun just with that. And then this is like just a drone video of, I try to turn on the volume of what the view looks like from kind of overhead of kind of just seeing everybody come together. And, as much as I like to say this was the event, I think the learning parts were how much we actually learned about each other in the meetings and just getting to know each other.
Alexa, add banana.
But I didn't even know there was a neighbor that could use a drone. And so this is where it was really fun. So, as far as how much this has really created a ripple, and again, just remind everybody that this was in 2019, that it went from, us just waving to each other to really being familiar with each other and actually stopping and rolling down the windows to have conversations versus waving. We were hoping to continue a tradition, and we were in the planning for 2020. And then, of course, with the pandemic, it made it very difficult to do another carnival. However, the impact of the one carnival continued on. And I think this became really evident not only in the pandemic where people would visit each other on their front step or talk from outside, but even with our neighbor that had ALS, and we did a neighborhood parade for him on his birthday, and we're able to visit through the window. And then even in the time of my daughter, who, essentially it was medical complex, and she still is, but she also has a disease that we didn't know at the time was progressive, and she actually started declining and was placed in hospice. And thinking about our own family struggles and, not, you feel at the time that you don't have the capacity to connect and make these relationships, but I will tell you that people have shown up because of this carnival. And so, over the past 4 years, we have had a couple of neighbors that repeatedly make us a meal once a week. It's not like a meal train, it's not like an end date. They just keep showing up. And so, in that regard, I find that to be a great success when it comes to the ripple effect we did do like a little family mini carnival where our neighbors still showed up. And so this was something that we did, a few years later, and it was wonderful. And I think that, one of the things to remember that you can do things to kind of maintain these relationships and they don't have to be as big, or you can do informal things. So I think both are possible and wonderful. And then this was on National Good Neighbor Day, where we did a coffee and donut day. And this was just this past September. And I think the beautiful thing about this is we had new neighbors that I didn't even know about. And so it was a great way to interact with them. And many people still talk about the carnival. But again, these are opportunities for us to meet. And I think now that we have, a success kind of under our belt and under our neighborhood, a lot of people actually want to show up. More recently, we found out while we were at the coffee event that one of our neighbors was getting a divorce. And this was honestly the only time that I would have had that interaction to even know that. So we decided to throw her a divorce party. And so these are things that we can continue to ripple and connect and find ways to celebrate each other. And so that is our story.
Thank you, Tasha, so much. There is so much in Tasha's story, and I know some of the background too, but it's just um, an amazing little first step that has led to such deep connections and the reciprocal things, the give and take. That's just a beautiful thing. And there's no telling. There's no telling. We didn't make the promise right at the beginning that this was going to lead to necessarily. We don't know where to lead. So it's just a start and a beginning. Amanda is going to share what her family did. So this is a newer, they just started last year, and Amanda's coming to you from Kentucky too. So
Yes. Hi, everybody. Um, so my story is around a project called Kit Bashing, and we actually held our project at a local library. So, um, this is my family. Here's my husband, Aaron, and Ryan and Aiden. And when Aiden was really young, he became super passionate about Transformers, so action figures. And we ended up traveling for these Transformer conventions and getting these special pieces called custom pieces. Well, fast forward all these years later, it is now called something. It's called kit bashing, where you take custom pieces, 3D printed pieces, parts off old pieces, and you come up with your own new character or figure. When we started this, I was like, I don't know, kit bashing, is this a noun, a verb? Um, it is a verb. It's something you do. And you can see one of Aiden's creations in the picture on the upper right-hand corner. So we actually partnered with the library to host our kit bashing. Um, and they kind of helped with signups and getting people that were um, interested in the same type of thing. Because if you can imagine something as specific as Transformers, um, it's kind of a niche group. So they were instrumental in helping us locate people to invite. Um, So why we said yes, like why did we decide to do this family project? Um, my coworker actually approached me and she's like, there's this thing, community projects, Starfire. I think it's really you. Trust me, check it out. So I did. And you cannot plan sometimes the goodness in life. And this really turned out to be some of the goodness in life. And so thankful that we did say yes. And I got to tell you, life in general, um, I hit a lot of walls, so I was like, like I might fail at this again. I know we sent Aiden to a private school. I was like, oh, he's going to be so accepted here. Private school's going to be great. Not so much. I even tried to, I was like, we should have a Transformers club. This was right after COVID, and I reached out on social media and a couple of stores, and I could not get it taken off the ground. But my friend's like, oh yeah, you can do this. Um, so as soon as I approached Aiden about this project, I was like, would you want to do your own? Well, I called it customs class. He's like, oh, that's old stuff. Don't say that. You're not cool. It's a kit bash. I was like, would I could we've got this group and they can kind of help us make it happen and not flop like my other attempts. Um, and this whole I was like kind of reading into social role valorization, and I saw who Aiden was in our family. And I also saw this kind of lack of opportunity that I was able to help create for him. So I saw this as an opportunity for him to be able to shine and show people his gifts. So those are all the reasons, and of course, more reasons, but those are the main reasons we said yes and to this family project. And I read somewhere that you need three things to be happy. Someone to love, something to look forward to, and meaningful work. And this really gave Aiden the opportunity to do meaningful work. Um, he he was super excited that he got to turn in a report afterwards and talk about his outcomes. Again, it was that new role for him, and it also gave him something to look forward to. So in a customs class, there's a lot of preparation behind it, making sure 3D printers are not fast yet. I'm sure it's coming, but a lot of preparation in printing the materials. And we were pretty dangerous. We went on Facebook Marketplace to find people selling their old bits and pieces and broken parts and old collections. So we would have enough materials to do this. So a lot to look forward to before the event actually happened. Um, we really wanted to gain community connection and an opportunity for Aiden to show his strengths. Last October, October 2025, that was our first event. And then the library was like, hey, let's do it again. So we had a follow-up event in May. And this summer, the librarian's like, hey, can you do another one this summer? And I was like, whoa, it is a lot of prep work. So we did an alternative event this summer. And then we have another event planned for the fall because we've already got the logistics down and he's kind of got his like fan base of people who share this passion. And they're not only looking forward to these events, they're connecting behind the scenes together, making the plans of what they're going to do next. And I didn't see that happening after the first event. Bridget's like, do you have any connections? I was like, yeah, there was this kid at the video store and this other kid. But those slow connections that started developing over time, that's the goodness that I didn't see like right after day one. Um, that, I mean, it's just amazing. And I'm not really involved in much of those relationships and those connections, and I shouldn't be because I am not 18. Um, so that's really nice that I'm not I was a facilitator before, and now I don't have to be. I got to remove that role from my mom title because I saw him grow in confidence, and I saw that other people, like his peers, were seeing that in him as well. So what was the single idea that I got to reiterate, I flopped on it before trying to get stuff off the ground, has become like really this ongoing community experience that he gets to have. So lots of joy, lots of connection, community, um, that happened because of this. And you can see this is our first event, which was amazing. Last October, you guys, it was 70 and sunny that day. Um, we were going to stay there. We're like, oh, we'll stay there 1 or 2 hours. This is probably going to, and we were there for hours on hours and people kept showing up. So it was a successful event. Again, like I couldn't have planned 70 and sunny. We were going to have the event outside and we're like, this is so perfect. We'll move it to the parking lot. I got to tell you, it did not, the event did not come without challenges for the first one. I went there by myself and Aiden. I did not have my husband in my corner like I thought I was going to because he got tied up with closing our pool. Some people came late. Anyway, um, it, I thought I was going to be there for 2 hours and I thought I was going to have my husband. So my caffeine was running low. So those extended out but I mean, it was a joy to see him having that much fun. And I wasn't going to end it for caffeine, but I'm going to tell you it was a challenge. Um, there was a lot of unknowns. I'm like, all these things could go wrong. What if people don't come? What if I run out of materials? What if people don't like it? Is he actually, are these things going to stick? I had so many like what ifs, like, I don't know, what if I bomb? But all these smiling faces, you guys. Our event really I, my kind of background is in education, so I loved not having rules. I loved having the opportunity for people just to like dive in and be creative and not say, well, what comes next? What are these steps? These steps are whatever you want to make them. The steps are don't get super glue on your fingers. I mean, that's really our only rule here. Um, and it was really inspiring to see the community come together for these big things. And those what if fears, those were all limiting. Like that was a lesson for me. Like don't get tangled up in your mind. Um, if you fail, like people don't show up, like if that's really the worst that should happen. Like take your lessons and move on. But that's our project, our story. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Kind of where we came from and where we are. Um, but I'd love if you guys have any questions, drop them in chat or unmute.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda. Who doesn't need a fan base? Love it that Aiden has that now. Just as a fun way of thinking. How do you build that fan base and connections on the in between those events? How important those are. And we have one more. Nancy's gonna share. Oh, she's ready. Look at you, Nancy. Let's see.
Gotta find my presentation, so give me a second here. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
So good. So good. So my sharing today is about my son, Steve. He is 33 years old. He's really kind of magical the way he runs. And we found over time that he's an artist. And that's been really cool to watch him grow and develop in art. He's been a fan of Starfire as I have for many years, ever since they shifted their program away from, in-house to outhouse, if you will. And so we've known him for a long time, and we've taken what I call the Starfire principles and applied it to our life. So I want to share with you our little story here. We had an invitation, even though we were familiar with Starfire before 21, we had an invitation to do a family project that Bridget had alluded to that they do for families. And so we decided, okay, what would we do a project on over the course of a year? And of course, the why would we do this? It's because Steve loves art. And we're like, wow, he loves art. We know that. So what are we going to do to expand on that and meet people and make connections? So that was our challenge for our project. These are the first people we engaged in our community. There were four of them and myself and Steve. And we were just brainstorming, what can we do to bring art into a community that doesn't really even have a lot of art? So during the course of our family project, we decided to do different experiences, such as a pop-up art experience in a park. And I didn't even know what Jackson Pollock was, but apparently he was a famous artist, and you can throw paint on canvases and anybody can do it. So you can see on the left side there's Sarah with a good friend of ours who showed up at our first event, and Steve was excited to be part of it. And in the middle, you see just people we know and don't know showing up to throw paint. And actually, I don't know if you can see behind me, that is a small rendition from that first pop-up in 2021 that the families did together. And what I love about these family projects, kind of like Amanda was even talking about, if you just allow things to happen, one thing then moves into something else. So we had a great, pop-up experience. And the next thing you know, somebody thinks we're an official group of artists, which we kind of were a little bit. And they said, well, can you guys compete in a doghouse making project for Homerama? It's happening in your neighborhood, Homerama. So, in your general community, in your township. And we were like, I guess we can. So one thing of a pop-up led to another invitation. And there on the right, you can see Steve. This is in our garage, painting and trying to create a really beautiful pop-up dog experience. And then they were going to auction these off. And then the proceeds of the raffle would go to animal shelter. So it was kind of really a cool project to be part of. But what we just realized was you just keep following the breadcrumbs. So that experience from the pop-up led to the doghouse, led to another thing we did with a group, which ultimately led to more artists. And we posted signs asking local artists to take a survey and just to say, hey, if you're a local artist, would you like to connect with some other local artists? And the next thing you know, this thing started, I think our family project grew, it had wings. So more artists started joining in, and Steve just happened to be one of them. And so we did a local art show. Steve's art was part of that. Here in this whole slide was really actually, so that was 2021. This was 2025. We just keep going with the projects and meeting more artists. And here in this project, we had the community come together at Christmas, and we were given a space where families were coming for the season. And they said, what could you do in this space with hot chocolate and inviting people in? And we said, we can have them paint a tile. So as you see in the center there, we had from 5-year-old kids to 85-year-old people painting a little quarter of a tile. And we gave them the right color, but they could put anything they want on that tile. And at the end of the day, our artists took all of these tiles, they put them all together in what you see on the right there. And Steve is in that position. It was a cold, ugly day. Steve's in that over there on the right. And we had our artists figure out how to compose them, seal them, and we got Kroger to pay for the work because it cost like $1,000 to create this mosaic, this big mosaic, and it's now hanging in our neighborhood in right outside of a Kroger. So it's amazing. And so what happens is when you allow community to come in and you collaborate with them, we found that something special keeps happening and connections that people post-COVID were so yearning for keep coming together. And it just keeps growing and blossoming to a point where we had such a big group. We have anywhere on a given event between 20 and 40 artists, and then their family comes. So when you add the family, sometimes it's 40 people, sometimes it's 50 people, but we've got all this community of people that come together. And so we decided to create our own nonprofit. And what you see there on the bottom is that when community collaborate, something special happens. And we now have the AAC, which is the Anderson Art Collaborative. So we as a group just keep growing and moving and working on new projects and doing fun things together to celebrate everyone. And my son Steve and myself and my husband, we get to just be part of it. So here I just wanted to touch on in addition to connection and projects in the community, one of our original artists that we never would have met, her name is Patty. She's there featured on the left. And when her mom had Alzheimer's, she's a graphic artist and she paints as well. And she decided she was going to start painting with her mother. And she was amazed with some few adaptive sponges and brushes and things, what beauty her mother, even in a challenged state within Alzheimer's, how she could create beauty with her mom. So Patty started teaching other people with varying abilities. And in the bottom left, you see Steve at the very bottom of the screen in a small group class with Patty. And what she taught Steve is he loves to paint his people, but outside of that, he can learn to paint other things, landscapes, cows, all kinds of different things that Steve would never have experienced before. So probably 4 or 5 times a year, Steve gets to be part of that experience. And Patty also for her students, and she's probably got 20 students that she teaches. She does a show once or twice a year. And on the right-hand side, this was just this year, I think in March, Steve is standing by his work. And this isn't his work that he did with Patty. This is his signature work, which some of you have seen. And he has a very unique version of people. And it tends to look a little Picasso-ish, I've been told. And on the second shelf of that rack, you might even see we've had coffee mugs made. So Steve's got his people on coffee mugs. And what we found with him that some of our artists suggested we do is the bigger the paper gets and the wider it gets, the more interesting his art gets. So some people do well with really small spaces. Our son likes the bigger the better. So there's been growth, which never would have happened had we not started with the family project. This is just sharing a few moments over the last few years where friendships that we never would have unfolded. Once a month, we do a social with our artists that has nothing to do with our projects. It's just bring your family, bring food. Sometimes it's a bar, restaurant, sometimes it's someone's home. But the bottom left, the artist is Frank on the right. And Frank's wife, Joan, just treasures Steve. So you could see her grabbing onto him. And just what I love about this, they're not intimidated. They're not threatened by him anymore because they've been exposed to him over time in many situations. So they approach him. And, of the 30, 40 people we engage with, there's probably 10 that really know him well. And Frank and Joan are one. And in the middle there, another one is Mary. She's a watercolorist. And she just loves Steve, bought his work. Steve's painted his people on flower pots. Mary's bought them for friends and family. So it's just been really, really special. The picture on the top right, I wanted to share another Cheers to Creativity social at someone's house. I wanted to just share, there's my husband in the red shirt next to Steve in the Art Collaborative. That's our logo, the Art Collaborative shirt. Just hanging out, having food at somebody's house, just hanging out. And those hangout moments are just important as the art we're doing together. As a matter of fact, in our collaborative, we say, I think our vision statement is a community where art drives wellness and lasting connection. So it's not about the art. It's the fact that we use art to drive wellness and lasting connection. So I love that. And in the bottom right, I just want to emphasize, I too get to have my own friends in all of this. So yeah, the undercurrent when we started our family project was to have Steve meet new people. But the Residual benefit is I get new friends, and that's Alice and I in the bottom right, and she's adorable. She's adorable. So I thought I'd just kind of end with some lessons I've learned ever starting 5 years ago from our family project. People that know me from Starfire know I talk about courage because it's scary to do things we've never done before. And taking courageous action, just one person at a time is all you need. And there's a quote by a man named Benjamin Mee that bastardized his quote to my own, which is it only takes 8 seconds of outrageous courage to transform your life because all you need to do is make one call that you're afraid to make. Introduce yourself to one stranger you're afraid to approach. Hit send on one email to some people that may or may not like what you're saying or doing, and it doesn't matter in the end. So I encourage others to take that 8 second challenge. Second thing I've learned is that sometimes it's just doing things, not talking, that generates the best connections with Steve. You know, the language can be all over the place. We're glad he has speech, but not always appropriate. But sometimes just working on a project side by side builds that connection that he and we all need. And this is my favorite one. Whatever happens with your family project, with your art collaborative, anything, in the end, it's not about the success or how we define success. It's not about whether my art collaborative gets a physical space for years to come. It's really just about the journey that this opportunity has given us, and it's about the relationships we make along the way. So we continue to cultivate community around us that both know and love Steve. And I rest in the hope that this process will continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy, so much. Um, I think you said it like, where will art lead? You know, these, a lot of times with our projects, we don't have many, we don't ask for an idea. We want people to talk to people. You know, the answer to what is who. So having those people that kind of collaborate and become part of the planning. Um, I just want to share my screen for just a second more and maybe advance it. There we go. Just to kind of contrast where we were when I started this and talking about where we were as a program in that traditional sense and how people, what their identity was. And just to contrast with these three projects and these three people that you heard about, what's the identity? What are they known for? It's not about disability at all. It's about their strengths and it's their interest and who they are as a person, finding that meaning and that purpose alongside other people in the community and making those connections, you know, these connections that are natural, they're dignified. Um, it's a diverse group of people, ages and differences and ways people can show up for each other in the culture. You know, shifting this narrative and the mindsets of who belongs where is really what we're, I think, in the long run, what we're doing, and showing that everyone belongs everywhere. Might just look a little different. We might make some concessions like we do for all people, you know, to do things together and really get to know them. So these are three examples. We've been doing it for 10 years. So we've got hundreds of projects. They're happening not just in Cincinnati, Kentucky. We've done things in Rhode Island, Massachusetts. They're kind of all over. And through that, we just recently, so I'll share, we just created a life making guide. That was what we're calling the efforts around projects, and sort of taking all the wisdom from all these projects and all these people and mashing it up into one place. And the big idea is, you know, this isn't just, we know community building isn't just for people with disabilities, and we think everyone plays a role in inclusion, and we could all do it. So we just need to think about how can we be together? How can we really focus on those strengths that people have? Think about those rhythms and patterns. Can it be weekly, monthly, annually? What can we do together? And creating those sensory rich memories so that we all have these things to sustain us through time. And I am gonna stop sharing and I will drop a link to that for you guys in the chat. And I think, so this link will take you there so you can see that and download the full guide. And I think if there's questions, Megan, we're good.
Yeah. I mean, first, thank you, Bridget, Amanda, Nancy, Tasha. Uh, I am just so inspired from what y'all are doing. And I know there's a lot of folks across the country who are looking to like, how do I get started? How do I connect with my neighbors? How do I invite them? And I was just like jotting down just nuggets of wisdom that you all shared in your stories, ways to both celebrate the gifts that you and your families are bringing, but also to invite that participation as well. And so thank you all so much. Yeah, we did have a couple questions in the chat, and feel free if you have one, you can go ahead and throw it in there. But one of the first questions is, I think, for you each mentioned that there was ongoing maybe events or connections after that initial family project. Are those funded by inclusion seekers, or how do you guys get funding or figure out how to support those projects? And so I think maybe Bridget, if you want to answer if there is funding, and if not, Amanda and Nancy, if you want to speak into how you resource that.
Yep. So we have for the projects that we support, there is some initial funding. It's usually about $1,000 for supplies. And then we've kind of started doing like a second. So, like after that first initial year, we kind of cut it down to like 500 that next year just to keep supporting it. Maybe it helps with the rental fee or costs, just to kind of help sustain it. We have had Nancy is probably one that's really branched out into her community and getting more funding so she could, but we've had other people, once you start showing up, you talk to more, again, you talk to more people and they know who's got the resources and where, and maybe it's just free stuff, the person that can show up with free food or whatever, kind of Tasha, I think she had to leave, but the free pizza, the restaurant owners, that this, so that's definitely been a trend, I think, in general for those projects, that they can kind of they start to support themselves in some ways with the more connections, but I don't know. Nancy, if you wanted to, I don't.
So you said it very clearly, Bridget, and we so honor that Starfire still supports us with our effort to continue to grow art and collaboration in our community. So we now have an annual fundraiser. Our second one's coming up here in Labor Day. And Starfire is a unofficial backer because they don't want to promote the fact that this is disability based. And here's what's interesting. Out of the, I don't even know, 30, 40 people in our group, none of them know this started from a family project. I mean, maybe two people, the few of the original people know, but that's the beauty of it, right? They don't know. They just know Steve happens to be part of our group because we just include him, and that's just what we do. And we've ultimately found, just so you know, a couple other people with disabilities, not many, have actually joined in our group, which is great. Um, so, um, so we have sponsors for our upcoming event, and that's where and then we have ticket sales to join in on a color dash, a color run thing that we're going to put on. So that's how we generate money, other than the fact that we just finished a mural. I know somebody was asking, could Steve do a mural? And we just finished a mural. I don't know if you can see this.
Mhm. Yeah, we can see that.
Nancy, I think your phone
Thank
might be
you.
blocking your mic.
Oh,
I couldn't hear you.
sorry.
Thank
That's
you.
okay.
Anyway, of all places, the Metro bus station opened a new indoor facility with a 45-foot wall. And this is the first time we've been commissioned. We got money to design the mural and pull the community in. We did the outline, and then we had a community day where anyone could come and help paint the mural. So we're about collaboration. So that was an image that I was trying to show. It's just about complete. So it's amazing. Metro Bus could pay money for a mural. I mean, who would have thought? So we're looking for new ways to make money. If anybody's got any ideas, I'm always game to hear, but that's what we've done so far.
I love that. Amanda, is there anything that you wanted to add to that question as well?
We kind of took the project beginning with the end in mind, and the end was to create something that was lasting. Um, so one of the things we purchased was a 3D printer, and it's really easy to keep this now that we have the product to like keep printing the supplies for it. And then we're just kind of like always on the lookout for people selling their collections. We're not like going to buy new stuff. I'm talking like garage sale level. Um, so if we hear of anybody cleaning stuff, if you guys are getting rid of any old action figures, you know who to contact. So just getting that message out there, people have so been willing. I mean, our like culture now supports reusing, right? So like when people hear that, hey, so and so's reusing a product, don't throw it away, they're happy to contribute. And then the library as well has resources that they want to use on the community. So they're there to promote or use their facilities, and those are all without cost. There's we have an extension office as well that is you can use it in the community. So um, yeah, begin with the end in mind and make those connections where you can continue accessing those resources.
Awesome. All right. And we had another question as well, specifically about has anyone had success utilizing Nextdoor for any of your projects? It sounds like to connect with neighbors. And then I would also add just outside of that, uh, what were the ways that you were able to build those relationships and maybe meet new folks, or what did that look like for each of your projects?
So I can just share that we haven't used Nextdoor, but we did do an experiment for a year. We had a membership with an app called Meetup, and that was kind of a cool way to reach people that we wouldn't know otherwise. And at the end of the day, from that year experience, we got like two ongoing artists and community members that are joining in with us. And so we didn't renew just because I got in on a promotional price, and then the next year they really jacked the price up. But at the end of the day, we did get a few more people join in with us. So it might be worth trying or doing a free membership if they offer it.
Amanda, what about you?
Not used next door, but I have found that social media has targeted groups for smaller geographic areas. So, like, there's a northern region community, and our neighborhood has its own social media page because we've already been thinking about Good Neighbor Day and how we're going to communicate that. So, joining those like specific niche groups on social media, um, but the library had more than enough interest to fill up our event multiple times over using their social media and newsletters and other ways that they promote events. So we didn't need to use anything additional.
And I'll say, just talking with Tasha, and it's kind of a trend of finding the person that knows everybody, right? So whether their neighborhood block already has a thread or a group chat, like whatever communication style they have, but there's that person, right, in your neighborhood that knows a lot of people or who has done. So kind of connecting with them first and asking them to help you spread the word or ask for the idea, the first, help with that initial thing has been helpful around like just specifically neighborhood things. Find that um, that connector, that mayor of your block
Yeah.
who knows everybody to kind of help get things started.
Absolutely. And that person can often be unexpected. It ended up for me, my like 64-year-old neighbor who has his own lawn mowing business because he mows everyone's lawns on the block. And so he like keeps himself, but he ends up being the person who knows when people are on vacation, like who's doing what. So definitely find that person. Well, thank you guys so much for being here today. What I'm going to do is everyone's going to get an email with today's recording, any resources shared, and just anything that you can bring with you into your own community. We do have a webinar coming up in September on how to spark resident engagement, and specifically interviewing Eva, who's been doing this work at the city level in local government about how you can support this relationship driven gift based work across your community. And so you'll get that email in your inbox later today or tomorrow. But I'm just so appreciative for everyone joining us. And again, special thanks, Amanda, Nancy, Tasha, and Bridget, for sharing your stories and just inspiring all of us today. All right. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.